Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another of these brand new 2025 Collecta releases, and as you can see, maybe one of the most anticipated overall, we have the Gallimimus, and I have been waiting for so long to get a good high-quality Gallimimus in my collection, especially a feathered version. You know, it's not something that we've seen too often over the years, and I think... You know, there's not too many I can even recall. Like, there is the Schleich version, but the Schleich version, you know, compared to this would be horrible. Like, that version is not that great. But this version is by far the best looking Gallimimus that I can recall seeing potentially ever. Like, it looks great. And again, just like with the last few figures, I feel like it looks a lot nicer in hand than the original prototype. You know, the original promo images had kind of led us to believe. So definitely excited about this one. Overall, it is a gorgeous looking figure. If we get nice and close and we start up here in the head sculpt, you can see that head sculpt is so beautiful. We have some very nice looking fine detail here throughout. You can see we've got like a brownish tone for the primary body color of our Gallimimus. We do transition nice and smoothly for a gray as you lead out into the snout. We can see the nostrils. We can also see that, as per usual, the eyes have been given a nice black and of course a gloss coat, so they shine quite nice and quite realistically. On the inside of the mouth, we can see the tongue sculpted out in there, painted with a pinkish tone. Not really much of you know, any other variation of color in there. Kind of actually a light tone in the back of the mouth there heading into the throat, but that's really about it as far as that goes. We've also got some nice feathers up here on the top of the head that have a reddish tone of color to them, definitely helping them to stand out. Same deal here as we move into the throat. Of course, I mean the reddish tone, not necessarily feathers here, but you can see that there is actually a wattle to the throat, which is pretty interesting. That's not something that I've really seen previously when it comes to Gallimimus. Definitely, you know, a little bit of artistic liberties as far as I'm aware for this species, but I think it works and I think it looks pretty good, and also again features that reddish tone like we see on the back of the head. Definitely something that I personally am a big fan of about this figure. As you lead down our nice slender long neck of the Gallimimus, you can see some feather detail throughout. Again, the figure as a whole is covered in feathers pretty much everywhere for the most part, and as you lead down, the feathers are fairly fine overall. Like, they're not massive or anything. They're pretty much exactly what I would expect when it comes to the feather detail in the neck of a Gallimimus, kind of emu-like as far as the style of feathers on this one. We do have a lighter tone moving down along the throat as well. We've got like a white leading down through the course of the underside of the Gallimimus, all the way actually out into the tail. As we move down into the body a little bit further, you can see those feathers start to kind of pick up in size. They definitely become kind of, you know, jumbled and erratic, very emu-like in this area as well, of course. But as you lead down into the arms of the Gallimimus, you can see we've got some pretty cool plumage here as well. Nice feathers sticking off of the back of the arm with some bluish tones. There are also some red spots throughout, as well as a light dry brushing highlighting the detail in that area. But then you also have the brown kind of following along the arm right here. But that absolutely creates quite the striking appearance for our Gallimimus, really helping the figure to stand out, I think. As you lead down, we can see the fingers there kind of hiding behind those feathers. We can also see the nails painted with a dark gray. You can actually get a better look at the underside of the hand if we look over there at the other side. Obviously, we can see 3 fingers, and we can also see even a little bit of a lighter tone there on the underside and like the palms of the hands and the undersides of the fingers. We have the blue tone there on the underside of those feathers as well, but they're just basically missing the red spots as we have the blue and that light dry brushing in that area. We do have a little bit of a lighter tone that shows up here, basically in the stomach, but it's hard to see the stomach because those feathers right there leading off of the arm are kind of hiding it, but you can also see it lead up here a little bit further into the body and even into the hip region leading back. We can make out the hip bone a little bit right there protruding through the feathers. Again, the feather detail continues to look really nice, really crisp, and I love how the feathers are just kind of like sticking up all over the place. Pretty much exactly what I would expect to see. As we lead down through the thigh, though, you can see the feathers kind of wear off here and basically taper off and disappear, leading into the legs, and the legs have a nice skin textured look to them. If you get nice and close, you can see how nice that skin texture looks. It's really well done. We can obviously take note to the nice bulging calf muscle as well, and when it comes to a Gallimimus, you're definitely going to expect the legs to be fairly muscular. Leading into the legs further, we can see we transition to a grayish tone, which does have a pretty strong dry brushing over it. I kind of like the dry brushing, but at the same time, a few areas are a little bit intense as far as that goes. Like right down here in the toes, I feel like it's just a little bit too maybe over dry brushed, but it still looks pretty decent. We can see some lighter tones down there in the toes, and then again the nails painted with that dark gray like we saw in the nails of the hands. As we move back up here, we lead out into the tail of our Gallimimus, and of course we have more of those brownish tones, more of those nice feathers following along, but we pick up more of the same sort of blue that we have up here, maybe slightly darker, but leading out into the tail, and you can see that looks really cool. Very nice plumage leading out here into the tail of the Gallimimus. And we can even see over here actually some slight hints of purplish tones actually showing up. Oh yeah, I can see that on both sides. I didn't even notice that right away, but I do now see that again. So some slight variations of purples have been added to the tail as well. And then again, moving along the underside, we can see the feathers look great. We can also lead back there into the underbelly of, well, actually the underside right here. We do have the cloaca present right there, but it's hard to really get to the underside because this one does come with a base, but there you can get a nice shot of what the feather detail looks like as well as the coloration. Of course, the figure for the most part is going to look the same on both sides, as you have the Gallimimus in kind of a neutral position as far as the primary body goes. Like you can see the head's pretty straightforward, the tail is straight out. It does have a slight curve downward, but the biggest difference over here would be the positioning of the legs. The arms are even held in pretty close to the same position, with this arm being just slightly more forward compared to what we see on the opposing side there. But obviously this leg is taking a step forward here as the dinosaur I guess would be running along or maybe walking along and has just kind of stopped to survey the landscape. I'm not entirely sure, but it looks really nice. I actually quite love the pose of this one. And then we also have a base down here, which isn't something we always get for our Collect Day figures, but I personally really like. I would actually love to have the ability to kind of pop them off the base, but it is what it is. We obviously can see some nice texturing. We've also got a brownish tone for the base, and what I really like down here is that Collect Day has added some nice doses of realism with some footprints, as you've got some footprints right here heading in a different direction as opposed to the direction that our Gallimimus is heading. Obviously, whatever species that is definitely a bit smaller than our Gallimimus, but we actually have other footprints in here as well, which you can see are even smaller than whatever species was walking through right here, kind of heading in the same direction. So I don't know if maybe it's like an adult with babies or not, or just entirely different species. It's really cool. But one thing that is pretty interesting is as we move back here, we can actually see the bones here laying on the ground of what appears to be potentially like part of the arm, the wrist, and the fingers and hand of some sort of dinosaur. So wherever this Gallimimus currently is, I think might be a little bit dangerous, and it should probably get out of the area as quickly as it can. But overall, it is a very nice looking Gallimimus, and as I already mentioned, I would say the best version on the market right now. As far as a size goes, for a length, you are looking at about... Actually, we're going to go from the tail to the snout. It just seems like it's going to be easier to measure it in that direction. So about a little over 6.5 inches, or again, close to 17 centimeters. And then for a height, just like maybe a hair under 4.5 inches or 11.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our Gallimimus from Collect Day. And we can see that at this point, this is the smallest figure that we've reviewed this year from Collect Day. But you'll also take notice to the fact that even with it being the smallest figure, it does still have some pretty impressive size to it. And in my opinion, is pretty much a perfect size for a Gallimimus. But if we go for a Jurassic Park version, we can see the Hammond Collection version next to the Collect Day version, kind of similar in size with just a little bit more body mass than our Collect Day version. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to this species, there aren't all that many figures out for it, you know, outside of a few like we've already mentioned, the Mattel, and then we also have like the Schleich, which I'm not even going to attempt to dig out because it's just such an ugly figure. It's not even worth bringing out next to this version. I mean, it's not the worst thing ever. It's definitely not Schleich's worst figure, but it's not a great version of a Gallimimus. But what I think I'll do is just bring in a few different Collect Day releases, specifically feathered Collect Day releases, which we can see we have the Nanuqsaurus right here, which is definitely a little bit smaller than our Gallimimus. That's pretty apparent. We also have the Gigantoraptor, which as well, again, is a little bit smaller. I know there is also a Struthiomimus out from Collect Day, which I do have, but I tried finding, I can't quite figure out where I have that one currently because it's so tiny. It's kind of a hard figure to locate if I don't have it out and displayed, and I currently have pretty much all of my Collect Day stuff in some totes because I had to rearrange a whole bunch of stuff down here when I got my new furnace and everything, but currently I don't have the Struthiomimus to display, so we'll just bring in some more again, feathered dinos, like their gorgeous Microraptor, which we can see obviously has a very different pose for it, but is kind of similar in size as far as the body mass and everything goes. Bringing a very similar style figure, though, like the Collect Day Baishenlong, we can see that obviously the size is quite a bit bigger, but they do look really cool, again, with a very similar look with the way they're walking and the style of their base and everything. And then just a few more randoms, as we've got the Ceratosaurus here from Collect Day as well, again about to take a bite out of the face of that Gallimimus. And then one final comparison, and maybe one of the coolest comparisons I could give you guys, we have the feathered T-Rex taking on the feathered Gallimimus, and obviously I think we should turn our Gallimimus away, because I don't think the Gallimimus would be running head-on to the T-Rex, so we're basically recreating Jurassic Park right here with the feathered versions of both, as that T-Rex is about to take down the Gallimimus. And honestly, like, the positioning of the two looks really cool. Like, they actually work pretty nicely together in a diorama. So this brand new Gallimimus from Collect Day for the year of 2025 is actually quite gorgeous. Like, this is probably my favorite release as far as the ones I've reviewed so far. Like, I have the entire line here beside me to review, but I haven't actually gone through them really yet. I've just been going through them as I review them, so I haven't really taken, an in-depth look at any of the others quite yet, but as of right now, I would say this Gallimimus is my favorite. I think the sculpt is absolutely incredible on this, as per usual. It is extremely highly detailed, sports some very nice, very impressive, very vibrant feather detail throughout, as well as skin texture throughout the course of the legs and, a little bit in the face, which looks really nice. We have, again, that kind of emu-like feathering, which is exactly what I would expect to see on a Gallimimus, so I think that as well is really nicely done. I also quite like the fact that they've included a wattle in the throat, which was just a really nice touch, not something that I've ever really seen before on Gallimimus, so I think it's a great addition to this figure. The coloration is also very nicely done, pretty much what I would expect from Collect Day, where we have nice naturalistic kind of tones of color through the course of the body, but we also have those elements of flashiness, especially in the arms and out there on the tail with the nice blues, and the addition of the purples in the blues was a really nice touch as well. And all of the transitions are pretty smooth and everything throughout. Again, very nice natural paint application for this one. The pose is pretty decently done, again, kind of in like the running pose like you would expect for a Gallimimus, so that also works. And the fact that it is in that sort of pose also kind of gives you the ability to create some nice dioramas with it running from, some predators, which is pretty cool. But you could also buy a ton of these and then, have a nice flock of Gallimimus looking super cool as well. Either way, this is a great release from Collect Day, and definitely one that I highly recommend picking up once it does officially come into stock on your favorite retailer's website. Again, you've got different sites you can choose from, like DeJenkins.com, EverythingDinosaur.com, Happy Hen Toys, all of the places, Mini Zoo, all of the places that you know and love when it comes to Collect Day releases. Definitely pick this up once it does come into stock. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.